Welcome to 5460, the Joe West Podcast. Featuring former Major League Baseball umpire Joe West. For 6 decades, no one has seen more baseball than Joe West. And now he shares those stories with you every week right here on the Podcast Heat Network.
Joe West is asking the Reds to leave the field. I guess maybe as a form of security.
Well, Joe West is not going back behind the catcher. So what is he doing? He wants to throw him out or what?
He's not going to back away from confrontation. It's just not in his makeup.
Which guy are we talking about backing away?
Well, come to think of it, it's both guys.
And they're warning the Atlanta dugout now. A helmet came flying out. Bobby Cox, I don't think threw the helmet. One of his players did, but Bobby's jawing back at Joe West. But somebody's been tossed, and here comes Cox. It was Bobby Cox who threw the helmet out there.
Off the umpire, and that's a foul ball. Joe West gets drilled, and he appears none the worse for it. He's a strong man.
Nice. Now Joe's going to give him some argument because Mark's saying, "Why do you do?" Joe, just get over there and umpire, will you? Yeah. Just get over there and umpire. No. That's all.
It's 5460, the Joe West Podcast. Here's Joe West and your host, Mike Claiborne.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to an edition of 5460. It's the Joe West Podcast. I'm Mike Claiborne. Joe, how are you?
Wonderful. I finally got the electronics to work so we can talk today.
All right, you ready to have some fun today? Because we're going to have fun with a really special guest. 16 years in the major leagues. He played for Chicago, Arizona, and also the Diamondbacks. Also a world champion with the Diamondbacks, 2,400 hits, a career 300 hitter. Played with a lot of good players in his career. Andre Dawson, Ryan Sandberg, Randy Johnson, to name a few. Let's say hello to Mark Grace. Mark, how are you, sir?
Hi, guys. Thanks for this is an honor. You know, I'm on the air with you, Claibs. I'm also on the air with an umpire that logged more games than any umpire in the history of the game. And he's not only a family member in baseball, but I can also call him a good friend. Westy, how are you, pal?
Well, it's great. It's great to have you on here, too. We're excited that you would join us. This is really neat.
It is. You know, you and me, the two of the dumber people in the world could figure out a podcast.
Well, I need you to tell that story that happened at second base in Shea Stadium with Tim Bogar, because that really depicts how sick we really are.
Yeah, you know? Yeah. So here we go. We're playing at Shea Stadium, old Shea Stadium in New York. I had gotten to second base, and the shortstop at the time for the Mets was a guy named Tim Bogar, who is now he's a coach for somebody. He's been a coach for a long time, but you know he was kind of a backup shortstop, middle infielder when in his playing days, and he was playing that day, and there's a pitching change. So Joe West is the second base umpire. I'm on second base, and during a pitching change, you know, you got time to converse a little bit with a second baseman or a shortstop and the second base umpire. And we got to, you know, Tim Bogar comes over, you know, "Hey Timmy, you know, hey Gracie, what's happening?" And Joe's, you know, minding his business about 10 feet away. He's not really getting involved in our conversation. So it's a getaway day. Getaway day means we're traveling out that day. It's the last game of the series. And Bogar comes up to me. He says, "Hey Gracie, where you guys going? Where you guys headed today?" And I said, "Well, we're going to Montreal." And I said, "What about you guys?" And that didn't even get out. And he didn't even let me ask him that question before. He says, "Hey, Joe, where are you headed today?" And Joe says, "I'm going to St. Louis. Where are you going? Tidewater?" And Tidewater's AAA for the Mets. And I just immediately oh shit. I didn't know what to do. I just tried to stifle a laugh, not to embarrass Tim Bogart, but I was just like, oh my gosh, Joe West, you just went there, and he did, and that's not the first time he went there. He went there a lot.
Yeah, well, I think you forget that was his first week in the big leagues.
Is that what it was? Okay, yeah, I did not realize that.
And the sad part of this story, well, it's not sad, it's really funny.
It's hilarious.
He came to bat for the next, I want to say 3 years, and when he'd come to bat, I'd say, "How you doing, Tidewater?" And he would just bow his head, get in the box, never say a word, So it was about 4 years later he came to bat, and I said, "Hey, Tim, how you doing?" He dropped the bat, and he gave me a big hug. He said, "I finally made it." So last year he gave me a baseball, and on the baseball he wrote, "Where are you going? Best of Tim Bogart." Yeah. I have the baseball here somewhere.
Hey, Gracie, what was your first encounter with Joe?
Well, okay. Well, it was my rookie year, and that's the thing. When you play first base like I did, you've always got an umpire right there with you. So you kind of get to know just about every umpire when I first got to the big leagues. There was National League umpires and American League umpires. It wasn't the mixed bag like it is now. And when Joe the first time I had Joe at first base, somebody there were veteran guys on the team like "Hey, Gracie, you got Joe West over there with you today. Behave yourself because he'll get up your ass." And I'll be like, all right, I felt like I was a nice enough kid, and you say hello and all that. But as the more and more I got to know Joe, the more and more I got to like him. But I remember, and I want to ask Joe this question. My first manager was a fellow named Don Zimmer, and it just now Joe can answer this better, but it just seemed like Don Zimmer and Joe West didn't like each other. So it seemed like every time there was a call, now this is before replay and everything, it seemed like every time there was a call at first base that was a bang bang play, here would come Don Zimmer out from the dugout, and I mean Joe and Don Zimmer just would just get after each other. Back in the day when umpires and managers did that. So I never really got a word in edgewise. Anytime there was a bang bang call, because Don Zimmer would come out and Joe and him would just have an ass chewing contest. And it was entertaining, but. I never asked Zim, and Zim's gone now, but I never asked Zim what his problem was. But Joe, what is it about Zim, or what is it about both of you that you guys just didn't get along?
Well, I don't know if when you first, of course, Keith Moreland was there when you played, and they sent him to third base on a base hit, and Zimmer was the third base coach.
Okay.
At the time, and. So I went to get in position to call the play, and Zimmer stepped right in front of me. And so I grabbed him, kind of backhanded him, and pulled him around me, and he tripped over my leg. And he went head over tea kettle. I mean, he's rolling on the ground over there. And so when he got up, Moreland was out from here to Rocky Mountain. He was out by half the baseline.
He was even slower than me.
And Zimmer was trying to tell him to slide because he knew that they shouldn't have tried to send anyway.
Right.
So, but he's over there rolling on the ground. So he got up and he charged me, and so when I saw that he was going to bump me, I grabbed him by both arms and stopped him. And he said, "You threw me on the ground," and he started cursing me. And I said, Don, I was trying to see the play. I didn't mean to throw you on. I'm trying to be real nice and everything. So who comes up there but Doug Harvey? And I'm working with Doug Harvey and Frank Pulley.
No,
when they got there, they couldn't figure out why he was arguing because Moreland was out so far. And so Zimmer turned around and told Doug Harvey I was a this, and this, and Harvey threw him out of the game. So he got kicked out of the game, and I didn't even throw him out, and it was my fault because I didn't mean to knock him down, but somebody showed me a film clip later, and he went head over teacup. It was not pretty, but that's probably why he would chew on me for the rest of my career. So
I got you. So Claibs, you were asking, my first encounters with Joe was I wasn't allowed to have an encounter with him because Zimmer was always out there having an encounter before I could even look at Joe. Don would be out there, and here they would go. It was pure entertainment. And but then, like I said, as I got to know Joe, we got to Joe's got in my opinion, a good sense of humor, and vice versa. And we started becoming respecting each other and all that stuff. And, I'm not afraid to say, that I can call umpires friends. And, I can call lots of umpires in my day that, I got to know them, on and off the field. And I consider Joe a friend of mine and someone that I hugely respect. But, I remember one time, man, Claibs, I was in a slump. Oh God, I couldn't spell hit. And I'm about one for my last 35, and I had just hit into a double play, and that's the inning. Now I'm out there playing defense, and Joe's at first base, and I'm just like, Joe, I just absolutely want to kill myself. And Joe looks at me and says, so does your manager. And I immediately, that made me laugh. And laugh at myself. And honestly, it relaxed me to the point where I think I got a base hit my next time and went on to do better things. Like it got me out of my slump just because I was feeling sorry for myself. I was having a pity party, a woe is me situation. And Joe said that, and I'm like, you know what? He's absolutely right. My manager hates me more than I do right now. So, but that's the kind of back and forth Joe and I had, and it was a good time.
If you'll remember, they had brought up a minor league pitcher to pitch that week, and he hit a double his first at bat in the left field gap.
Oh my goodness! Yes, you're enlightening me. I do remember.
And he hit a double his second at bat, and when you hit that weak fly ball, you said, "I wish I could hit like our pitcher." And I said, so does everybody else on your team. So I remember that.
Oh my gosh. It was, but that's the kind of back and forth Joe and I had for years and years. I didn't have as much time in the big leagues as Joe did, but I had 16. So obviously I spent a lot of time with Joe, and it was just, he was a guy, he would mess with me all the time. And I don't know if you messed with others as much as you messed with me, but you were pretty good at it with me.
Hey, Gracie, who gave you trouble as an umpire? We know Joe wasn't the guy.
Well, Joe and I, like you know who, at that time, you know who you could, you know who was grumpy, and you knew who, but you also knew who was, fair-minded. Like for instance, well, a guy that I always thought was grumpy was a fella, and I'm sure Joe knows him well, but he was back in the day of American League umpires. His name was Joe Brinkman. I just felt like he was grumpy, and so I would always try. And well, my first run-in with Joe Brinkman was, and Joe probably knows this. Joe Brinkman, when he was the plate umpire, he would be on a knee about 10 feet behind the catcher. Honest to God, he'd be on a knee about 10 feet behind the catcher. So this is right when interleague play started. So I had never had, for my first few years in the big leagues, there was no interleague play. So I get up to my first at bat, and we're in Tiger Stadium, old Tiger Stadium, and I get up there, and Joe Brinkman is on a knee about 10 feet behind the catcher, and so I'm kind of looking back at him, and I'm like, "You ready? Let's go." And he cussed at me, and like, "You're damn right, I'm ready. Let's go. Get in the box." Okay, and finish my at bat, and the next time I came up, I mean, if the pitch was in the area code, it was a strike, and that was an easy 0 for 4 that night because I just didn't know better, but Joe just came across as grumpy to me, but I felt like I had a pretty good relationship with most umpires. Now, I only got kicked out of, I think, 3 games in my whole career. Jim Quick got me one time, but I really like Jim Quick. A guy we call Pee Wee, Greg Bonet, he got me, and I told because we all called him Pee Wee, we didn't call him Greg. He threw me out of the game, and I told him, he wasn't a very big guy. I said, "Pee Wee, if you were a foot tall, I'd knock you right on your ass."
Psst. Who's going to take care of your family if something happens to you? What would they do without your income? If you don't have a plan, you need to go to Goliathlife.com. Get a quick quote from more than 20 carriers. You don't even have to leave the house. If you need a medical exam, they'll send somebody to your house or office. You're in total control. You pick the rates, you pick the payments, you pick the terms. You're in total control, but it gives you and your family peace of mind. What if something happens to your income? Hurry to Goliathlife.com.
Hey, what about that time you were a pup and Frank DiPino decided to throw at you? Did you get tossed in that game?
Oh, yeah, I got tossed. Yeah, when you charge a man, you get tossed. And Joe, did you have that game?
That was a game where I said, "You got to calm down. You might get suspended." And you said, "We're in fifth. We're in fifth place. What matters that mean?"
Yeah. So my rookie year, Frank DiPino was a Chicago Cub, left-handed pitcher. He was a Chicago Cub, and I was a rookie, and I was this snot-nosed rookie and everything. And there was a lot more hazing back in the 80s. My rookie year, there was a lot more hazing of rookies, and rookies. There was only a couple of rookies. It was me and Rafael Palmeiro were the only 2 rookies on that team, and so Rafael and I both got a lot of grief from the veteran guys, and that's just the way it was. I get it, but I felt like Frank DiPino when he would, and Frank DiPino, he was pretty funny guy. He had some pretty good one-liners and some good wisecracks, and all that stuff. And after about 2 months of my rookie year, I felt like just about every one of his wisecracks and I felt like they were all just kind of aimed at me. And I felt like after a couple of months, it wasn't just fun loving. It kind of became malicious. And yeah, this guy didn't like me very much. So the rest of that year, my rookie year, he and I got along about like a cat and a dog. And Frank finished out that year and became a free agent, and he signed with the St. Louis Cardinals. And and he had told a couple of my teammates and our trainer at the time, he's like, I'm so glad I stayed in the National League because the first time I face Grace, I'm going to drill his ass. And okay, so it gets back to me. We go to St. Louis for the first time, and we go to St. Louis, and my teammates and our trainer told me, hey, he said, by the way, just a heads up, if Whitey Herzog brings in DiPino to face you, he's gonna come after you. He's gonna try to hit you. And I told him, I said, well, if he does, ring the bell. It's round 1. And so, sure enough, It's a Sunday day game,
Mm-hmm.
and we are just hammering the St. Louis Cardinals. Ryan Sandberg hits a home run in front of me. I hit behind Ryan Sandberg, and he hits a home run in front of me to make it about 10-1 in the fifth or sixth inning. Whitey comes out and give me the lefty, and that lefty is Frank DiPino. So as Frank's trotting in from the bullpen down the right field, I think it was the right field line back in Old Busch Stadium, I go back to the dugout and I tell Rick Sutcliffe, I said, all right, man. He goes, this guy's gonna hit me, and if he does, I'm going. And don't leave, bring the cavalry with you, because I'm going to be out there on that island for about for a little while. So Sutcliffe, all right, well, here we go. So as I'm going into the left-handed batter's box, I notice every St. Louis Cardinal is on the top step. Every St. Louis Cardinal. And then as I get in the left-handed batter's box, I look in the third base dugout. Every Chicago Cub is on the top step. And I'm like, and Tony Pena is the catcher for the Cardinals, and he doesn't even put a sign down. DiPino comes set, and here it comes, and I spun, and it missed me by less than an inch, but it missed me. And hell with it, that's close enough. Here I go, and there we go. And I'm telling you, Joe, if you remember correctly, it was a pretty good one.
Yeah.
And I got out there, and Frank and I, we started doing the best we could, and then, man, just an avalanche of human beings. It's just all over you. It's just like, and I'm laying on the ground. I'm like, maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all.
Especially if you're at the bottom of the pile.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So anyway, they're cooler heads finally after what felt like an eternity on the bottom of that damn pile. They pull me off of there and all that, and Pedro Guerrero's running around, let me at him. I'm like, yeah, turn me, go ahead and turn Pete loose, So now Joe West is escorting me, get out of here, you're going to get suspended and all that, come on, it's over, let's go. And he's escorting me off the field in St. Louis. Well, first time I'd ever charged a mound, I didn't realize, the visiting fans. Now, Cardinals Cubs, big rivalry. You guys know that. I mean, there was beer, hot dogs flying at me. I'm getting all kinds of nonsense thrown at me. Joe kind of pushes me off and basically, you're on your own now. I just got hit with so much debris, and I'm like, oh my God, I got to get out of here. But yeah, that's the Frank DiPino, Mark Gray story.
Well, you had a lot of experience with Chicago, and then you went to the Diamondbacks, and that was a pretty unique situation there. You were on the World Series team with them, where they won the World Series in a pretty special year too, that all the world should remember. And the coolest thing that I see about your career is was that you got to see a lot of different great pitching and great hitting. I mean, you played with Sutcliffe when he had his best year.
Yeah.
And you had those two kids that came up with the Cubs prior, and who was the other one?
Kerry Wood.
Wood.
Yeah. But also, yeah, Greg Maddox, playing behind Greg Maddox.
You had Maddox, yeah. And that's really funny. I had Greg Maddox's first game.
You really?
Yeah, he was put in as a pinch. I think he was put in as a pinch runner, and then he came in relief. I don't know how they did that, but over the course of time, I had Greg Maddox's first game, and I had Dwight Gooden's first game, and I mean, it was kind of funny how you go back and look at all this stuff, and then when you left the Cubs and you went to the Diamondbacks, you had Schilling and Randy Johnson, and the most unique thing about this game is how much big league ball players want to win, and how winning is so important as a team sport. How you feel like you've let your compadres down if you fail at trying to do your job, and I know that had to be good for you when you said you won the World Series, and you said it was the most exciting thing you ever did. You thought it was better than sex, and then you said, of course, I'm not too good at that either. So, but
that is verbatim what I said.
I think the coolest thing is for people to understand that everybody's trying to win. I think a lot of the confrontations that ball players had with umpires was because they were trying to do their very best. They were trying to win. And I've told Mike this before that when we put instant replay in, it was amazing because the players now realize that the umpires are really trying to get them right.
And it's true. And 90-something% of the calls are correct.
Yeah.
And,
so,
but as you said, it's that competitive spirit, and yet that and that's the thing. It's like to be able, I couldn't be an umpire. The old cliche is an umpire never has a home game, and but I also think, Joe, that like you talk about wanting to win, and for 13 years with the Chicago Cubs, like I got to be honest, like I would say probably at least 10 of those teams were bad teams. We made the playoffs in '89 and lost to the Giants in the Earthquake series. And then '98 we were the wild card. We had a 1-game playoff with the Giants and a 1-game playoff. But really the most of the rest of my career as a Cub, I played for bad teams. So I was still a very loyal Chicago Cub, and I loved being a Chicago Cub. But it can grate on you. I was on a team for Chicago guys that I think it was like 1990, maybe 6, that we started the season 0-14, lost our first 14 games. Think about that. You're out of it in April. You're playing out the string for about 145, 150 games. Think about that. You gotta stay tuned in. You gotta go out there and continue to go out there and try to and bust your ass, knowing that most likely we're going to get beat. And if we play well and the other team, we just didn't have enough talent to compete with the 500 teams or better. And just that's the kind of thing that you have to deal with. But then fast forward to 2001 with the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I'm like, man, I've never been on a team this talented in my life. We had star power too, man. He mentioned Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling, but you go around, we had Luis Gonzalez, Matt Williams, Steve Finley, Reggie Sanders, myself, Jay Bell, Tony. I mean, we had star power on that team, and that's why I think that's another reason why Joe was saying, when we beat the Yankees in the 01 World Series, the star power the Yankees possessed too. It was, from Clemens and Pettit to, Musino on the mound to, the greatest closer of all time in Mariano Rivera to Derek Jeter and Bernie Williams and, just the list goes on and on and on. I mean, that was an absolute dogfight. Much respect from both sides, but it was a stud team from the National League and a stud team from the American League just freaking going at it. And it's the first time I was ever on a postseason stage like that. And I'll tell you what, it's been 21 years, but I still remember it like it was last night.
Yeah, that's so unique, and really, it's one of those things where all of America, was watching because from everything that was happening at the time, this was something that helped the country heal. So that was really, really unique.
Couldn't agree more. Could not agree more.
Mark Grace is our guest on 5460, the Joe West podcast. Gracie, you played with a whole lot of good players, even in Chicago.
Yes.
Best player you ever faced as an opposition?
No, it's hands down. It's not even close. Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was the best player I've ever seen. Now you can say what you want to say about him, but he wasn't the only guy in my era. But by far, the best player I've ever seen is Barry Bonds. And honestly, it's not even close. You can talk about Griffey all you want, A-Rod, go down the list of great players. My era, not even close. Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds changed the way managers managed. Like you had to manage your way around. Okay, Barry Bonds is hitting fifth next inning. So what do we want to do this inning? And there's this thing you do, guys. When you want to walk a guy, you put four fingers up like that. Like you want to walk. If you didn't put four fingers up, he hit a home run. If you pitched to him, he hit a home run. He didn't hit a single. He didn't hit a double. He hit it in the damn ocean out there in right field in San Francisco. And and once again, whether you like Barry or dislike Barry, I personally got along with him fine. I like him, but he is hands down not even close. The player of my era that was the best I've ever seen.
Now, your career 300 hitter.
Right. Thanks for mentioning that.
I thought you'd appreciate that. All right, who was a guy that you owned? Who was a guy you had the paperwork on, and who was a guy that gave you problems?
Man, okay. I'll start with the guy that I owned, and he's a Hall of Famer. Believe it or not, he's a Hall of Famer. I wore out John Smoltz. I wore him out. He had such good stuff, and Joe knows he had the best seat in the house for a lot of John Smoltz pitch games. But for some reason, I wasn't a big home run hitter. I hit like 175 or something like that in my career. Like 7 of them were off John Smoltz, and about 3 more in the minor leagues off of him. And when he was in the Detroit Tiger farm, so I wore him out, and the 2 guys owned me, and they were both New York Mets. One was Ron Darling. Remember Ron Darling?
Oh yeah.
I think 1 for 28 off of Ron Darling, and I could handle Gooden. I could handle David Cohn. I could handle Sid Fernandez. But man, I could not handle Ron Darling. He just I couldn't pick up. He had a good split finger. I couldn't pick it up, and he could tell me what was coming, and I still couldn't hit him. And the other was their closer, a guy named John Franco. Johnny Franco, I think 2 for 35 lifetime off of him, something like that. And it was and those 2 hits weren't hard hit at all. So, but Johnny was, I love Johnny, a great guy, and he would, Johnny, he had a ton of saves, and I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. But he would start, if he got a couple guys on base, he'd start looking over in the Cubs dugout. All right, how many guys can I pitch around to get to Grace? Because I know. So he'd get a guy on, in a 1-run game, and he'd start looking over, and I'd scream out from the dugout, John, 5 more guys to me. And he would start laughing because I knew what he was looking. How many more guys can I walk to get to Grace? Because I know I can get him out. So, yeah, so both those New York Mets just wore me out.
Hey, folks, I'm glad you're listening today and having a chance to listen to Joe and our favorite guests we have on. But I want to talk to you about something else. It's that time of the year where guys are getting a little frisky about different things, and they want to make sure they can perform on the field and in other rooms of the house, if you know what I mean. That's where Blue Chew comes in, and this is something, Joe, that we have had a chance to talk about. And Blue Chew is something that we need to let everybody know that can really help them in a lot of different areas.
Well, the coolest thing about Blue Chew is it's an online service that delivers the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis. And the chewable tablets are there at a fraction of the cost of the other stuff. You can take them anytime, day or night, and just to get yourself ready for your performance later on.
Or anytime. That's the great thing about it. You don't have to set the clock. You can just go when you go. But, here's the deal. So for people who've never heard of Blue Chew, let me explain to you how it works. You just go to bluechew.com, consult with one of their licensed medical providers, and once you're approved, you'll see your prescription in about a few days. It doesn't take that long. It's a quick turnaround. And the best part about it is you're doing everything online. Just like you're listening to this show, it's online, no doctor's office visits, no awkward conversations about what do you think, or I've got a little problem. And, the neatest thing is you never hear your name called in a pharmacy line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew tablets are made right here in the U.S., and they're prepared and shipped to you direct to your door in a discreet package. So if you want more information, just check them out, bluechew.com, and you'll find out that you will have a lot in common with the postman after a while. You'll also find out that first impressions, they are important, but with Blue Chew, I can guarantee you this, it'll make a lasting impression, and that's what this is all about. So it's time to get off the couch, fellas. Let's get in the ball game. You're messing up. You're wasting too much time just thinking about it. Blue Chew will get you moving in the right direction, and I do mean up.
A great songwriter once wrote, "You never get a second chance to make a first impression." And of course, you probably have never heard of him. It was me. But the Blue Chew is free when you use our promo code, Joe West, at checkout. Just pay $5 in shipping and the bluechew.com promo code Joe West to receive your first month free. Visit bluechew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast. Well, that's just interesting that you look back on all that stuff. I had you were talking about Bonds. I had Bonds' father as a player, and he was quite the athlete himself. He
was a coach for the Giants, for there for a while. So I got to know him.
He struck out more than Barry ever did, but he was the 5-tool player, and the only thing that Barry didn't do well was he couldn't throw.
Right.
He wasn't that good at throwing the ball from the outfield. And the funny thing is he'd lead the league in assists because they would run on him.
Yeah, that's a good point. But he covered, when he was as huge as he got, he covered a lot of ground out there too. He was a good look. He didn't have a great arm, but you're right. He was a pretty good outfielder, but you're right. He didn't have a very good arm.
Yeah, that was his only weakness.
Try to take the extra base on Barry.
Yeah, that's why he led the league in assists, because they would run.
Even slow guys like me would try it.
Yeah, but you look back on all these things, and the thing that gets me today is the player today doesn't seem to study the game like you guys did. Like you would understand what this guy's going to throw you, when you're hitting. And even the umpires, when I first came up, there were ball players that would ask other ball players, "Have you had this umpire before? Because if you have,
absolutely,
what's he like? Can you talk to him? Is he, like you said, is he grumpy?" So there's a lot of today that I think that the people are kind of missing out on. But
well, I think you're right, and I think what has happened is the game has become kind of robotic. The players have become robotic. The umpires have become robotic. It's because every replay now. That was I don't mind. I don't mind replay. I don't mind it because at the end of the day, the goal is to get the call right, and I get that. But it's also taken a very entertaining part of the game out of it, and that's an argument between a manager and an umpire, or a player and an umpire. And that's fans love that. Fans love. They loved it when Don Zimmer would come out and get after Joe. They one of the best arguers I ever saw at Joe is Jerry Crawford. Jerry Crawford. I mean, one of the nicest and a damn good umpire, and just a nice guy. But I'll tell you what, I saw him just abuse the managers and players when they started going out. I was like, ooh, I'm going to try to stay on his good side.
Well, his dad was an umpire too, you know.
Shags, right?
Yeah, Shag was an umpire. He was there before I got there.
Okay.
In fact, they kept Jerry out of the big leagues because they didn't want him to work with his dad. And they realized years later that was a mistake. And
he was a damn good umpire.
Yeah, they actually let Hunter Whittlestead come up and work with his dad. But
that's true.
Shag was a special umpire. He was of the old Barlick, Donatelli era, and he was pretty special too. And you know, his brother Joey was an NBA referee.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, for a long time. Yeah, Joey Crawford was for a long time a very good referee as well. That's interesting though, how a family like that, you know, gets into officiating and umpiring. But
one of my favorite stories about Joey was Barkley walked up behind him one day and said, "What does it feel like to be the worst official in your family?"
I know Charles pretty good. That sounds like
that's just like him.
Did Jerry have a good comeback?
Joey just laughed.
Yeah.
He thought it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to come back on that? But you know, there's so many. You know, like I said, I got to know so many umpires, and like I said, there's a bunch of, and you know, you knew, and like Joe was saying, like you find out, hey, what, you know, does this guy have a wide strike zone? Does he have is he a small? Is he more of a pitcher's umpire? Is he more of a hitter's umpire? And, you know, you had small strike zones. A guy that comes to mind that I thought had a pretty small strike zone, and one of my favorite guys, a guy named Randy Marsh. I felt like he had a smaller strike zone where a guy with a really big strike zone in my day was well, Doug Harvey had a big strike. He had a wide strike zone, but at the same time, a guy like Frank Pulley. Frank Pulley, I thought had a pretty big zone. Another guy that I loved. I don't think Frank's with us anymore, but he was always a lot of fun over there at first base as well. But here's the thing, Joe. Going back to your comment, is you had to, in order to improve, you had to watch. It wasn't all video like it is now. Now you just watch video. You actually had to watch the game, and you didn't have the numbers crunch. You know, all right, on a 2-2 count, 61% of the time he's gonna throw a changeup. You know, and I remember one time when I was a hitting coach for the Diamondbacks, we were having our hitters meeting, and we're facing a Padre named James Shields, and James Shields had a good changeup, and his thing was, when you get to a 3-2 count, guys, 68% of the time he throws a changeup. 3-2 count, 62 or 68% of the time he throws a changeup. Well, one of our hitters, he's gonna remain nameless, David Peralta. He got up there his first at bat, couple guys on, and got to a 3-2 count, and James Shields throws a fastball right down the can, strike three, and David Peralta says, just frozen. You know, he's looking for a changeup. He comes back, and he is pissed off at me and the other hitting coach, a guy named Dave Magadan. And he's like, you said he's going to throw a changeup. I'm like, guess what? You got the other 32%, pal. and I mean, it's not, these numbers are they're okay, but they're not the gospel. You know, they're not the gospel. You know, maybe at that time he didn't have a good feel for his changeup yet. You know, it's stuff like that. You have to watch, Joe. You have to watch. How is he pitching other left-hand? In my playing days, I used to watch as many Pittsburgh Pirate games as I could, because I wanted to watch Andy Van Slyke hit, because I felt like Andy Van Slyke and myself were pretty similar type hitters. And I'll be damned, both you guys, I'll be damned if I wouldn't watch him hit against the Cincinnati Reds. And I'm like, okay, Jose Rijo is pitching him this way. Tom Browning is pitching him this way. I'll be damned if they didn't pitch me the exact same way the next time I faced them. So you actually had to watch, which now that that part of the game has been taken out of it because of all the numbers crunching going on.
Are you feeling stuck making minimum payments on your credit card debt? SaveWithConrad.com can help, and you don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket to do this. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. Oh, and did I mention no house payments for 2 months? Get rid of your credit card debt and lower your monthly payments right now at SaveWithConrad.com.
Hey, fellas, guess what? We've got a special guest that's going to join us. Gracie, you know this guy for a long time. You guys started off in Peoria. Both you guys were in the minor leagues. He played 12 years in the National Hockey League. 1,497 penalty minutes. Wasn't necessarily a goal scorer, but they don't make him any better than him. He played with a bunch of Hall of Famers. He's a King Clancy Trophy winner as well. Say hello to Kelly Chase. Chaser, good to have you on board.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, did you say how many penalty minutes?
1,497.
That's wrong.
Okay, how many?
2017.
You must have gotten a fight between now and yesterday, I guess, huh?
You just look it up. You're looking at the Blues stats. You're not looking at the NHL stats.
You must not have counted the 10-minute misconducts.
I know that nobody wants to remember the years in Hartford, but you got to add them in there too.
I stand corrected.
How's it going, boys? I was listening to Gracie talking about pitch count. I never watched anybody shooting on a goalie and said, man, he does the same thing to me. And I go, son of a bitch and goalie, stop me the same way.
Now, how far do you guys go back? I mentioned the fact you guys knew each other from the minor league days. So how many years now?
You've heard a lot of me. Kelly, go ahead and take that.
Well, which actually, Gracie being in Peoria and then having that run where he went up and was playing in the playoffs is funny because we got to know one another. And then I'm in the NHL. Gracie's in the, playing up in the big leagues, and he comes to the game, and I'm excited. He's coming to the game, and I said, come on, we're gonna, I want to, see you after the game, or I'll see you, a little more. As you know, in baseball, the clubhouse is a little bit more relaxed than, say, Brian Sutter would be just prior to a playoff game in Chicago. And Gracie just rolls in the locker room. He's like, Chaser. I'm like, hey, buddy, talking to him. And I'm rookie, and I'm like, uh-oh. And then Gracie's got a Hawks jacket on. I'm like, Gracie. He goes, I don't know what the big deal. And the funny part about it was I took batting practice with him and didn't learn a damn thing from it, because the next year I'm out with a Cubs jersey on taking batting practice, and Joe Torre comes over to me and goes, hey, Kelly, come here for a second. I said, hey, what's going on? He said, listen, man, if you're going to stick around town here and play for the Blues and drink some Budweiser beer, you might want to get out of that Cubs jersey in St. Louis and put on a Cardinal hat. If you want to take batting practice, you can come and take it any day you want with the Cardinals. But if I was you, and of course, no cell phones or anything, he goes, if I was you, I'd get your ass out of that Cubs uniform. Good advice.
Well, that's great. You guys go back a long way. And it's
we go back to Peoria, Illinois. I was playing single A baseball in Peoria, Illinois, and Kelly was playing triple. I guess it was considered triple A hockey for the Peoria Rivermen. And the baseball season and the hockey season intertwined for about a month and a half. And we had this drinking establishment where
the lucky lady.
Yeah, it was Sully's, right? It was called Sully's, I believe.
Oh, we were at the Lucky Lady the night we did the beer. Talking about the beer drinking contest?
Yeah, that was the Lucky Lady. Yes. So anyway, a bunch of us baseball, guys, that probably about 5 or 6 of us went into Lucky Lady, and we see these good sized dudes, and we're just like, yeah, well, and they're kind of at the table or the booth next to us, and we got to yapping at each other, and hey, we're hockey players, we're baseball players, and we got hey, so yeah, come on over here. And so we all started to have a bunch of Diet Pepsis, and no, we were drinking pitchers of freaking beer is what we were doing. So we got to let's have a pin, put a bunch of pitchers out here. Let's have a drinking contest. Whoever wins, the other guys have to pay.
Gracie, I got to stop you for a second because I remember the guy's name. His name's Troy Godotti. He owned the place, and he said, if you guys, we want to set up a beer drinking contest, the baseball players against the hockey players.
That's exactly right.
The team that wins gets a free tab for the night. Well, when you're making
$700 a month is what I made.
Yeah. So when you're making $22,000 a year in the minors, that was what we were paying at AAA. You're going to win this beer drinking contest. Gracie was the first guy up in the beer drinking contest. And there was myself and Dave Tomlinson and Rob Dirk and Lyle Odeline. And Lyle Odeline started off drinking against Gracie. It was pretty tight. Everybody had to drink 2 full mugs of it.
I was a pretty good beer drinker back then.
They thumped them back at the same time, and down went the mugs. And by the time we got back to Gracie, whoever was our running the last horse, Gracie was on his second beer. We were finishing up 8 of them, and Gracie just got to it. And we said, "Hey man, the only one of you guys that are allowed to hang around with us now is Grace. He gets a free tab with us for the rest of the night." Hockey players.
Needless to say, the hockey players. Anytime the baseball players were there, the hockey players never bought a beer the rest of that year. But that's how we got to know each other, and hell, he's been a dear friend of mine for over 30 years now.
So let me run this by all 3 of you guys. The minor leagues is really a lot of fun when it comes to storytelling, bus rides, things of that nature. And I've always thought maybe the bus rides might have been the most creative rides you guys have ever taken. So I'll start with you, Chaser. Your best minor league bus ride. We'll go around the horn because Joe West, you umpired in the minor leagues as well, and I'm sure you had a few car rides that might have been interesting with some of your compadres.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't really know what the best one. I mean, I was in Peoria. I was in Saskatoon, and we used to have to take that 26-hour trip out to the West Coast, play 6 games out there, and come back to Saskatoon, and we do it in about 8 days, and it was awful. But in Peoria, we had a great group of guys. We lost our first game, and we won the next 18 in a row. Wow. And then we ended up winning the cup that year, but we had this group of guys that were so much fun. And Jimmy Vesey got one of those 2-way radios, and he put it at the back of the bus. And the entire year, he talked to the driver of the bus, our bus, from the back of the bus. And he had to have him thinking it's this truck driver who's a super fit, him and his wife are following him at the end of the game. And he had our driver crazy. Our driver was like, he leaned over to Bobby Plager. He'd say, this guy Turk, he's following us again, Coach. I'm going to try and keep him away from the players and do the best I can, Coach. And I mean, everything. And VC would be at the back of the bus, and he'd say, is Plager on that bus with you guys? And the guy'd say, sir, I can't talk about stuff like that. He'd say, I saw Plager out the other night, bunch of chicks hanging over him, all over him. And Plager, of course, can hear all of this, right? He knows it's us screwing with the driver. This went on the entire year where these guys had this driver making turns where he shouldn't have made turns because he said the semi's falling away. Great.
That poor son of a bitch.
What about you, Gracie?
Well, when Kelly and I were riding buses, there was no iPads or laptops, or you couldn't stream movies or anything like that. I had one of those old Sony Walkmans. It's something about me. I cannot sleep on airplanes. I can't sleep on buses. I can't sleep in cars. I wish it was different, but I just can't. So, he's talking about, I never had a 26-hour, bus ride, but, I had more, had double digits a couple times. But that said, you got the whole bus sound asleep and me wide awake with a Sony Walkman on, listening to whatever music I listened to back then. But there was a time where just about every teammate I had wanted to fight me because they're trying to sleep and I had really bad gas on the back of the bus. So, I mean, we've all been there and it was bad. So, I always said, I'd rather lose a friend than lose an intestine. So, needless to say, for about an 8-hour bus ride, I had everybody, pitchers, hitters, it didn't matter, honestly threatening me. Grace, do it one more time. I promise. Do it one more time. I'm going to beat your ass. Well, Sorry. You know,
8 hours of gas.
So pretty soon, it's just like I just got to giggling, you know, and I'm sorry, you guys. So yeah, that's one of the worst and best memories that I've got.
Joe, you had a few car rides in the minor leagues from place to place.
Yeah, and I always knew Mark was full of it. Now I know it. He's admitted to it. But I worked the last season. Well, my AA season, we had car trips where we had to drive everywhere. I was working with John Shulock. Now, can you imagine that?
I know Shu. Now,
when we'd walk on the field, John Shulock and I'd walk on the field, the players would look at each other and go, "Oh, no, not them." It was just because we were the two biggest red asses in baseball at the time. And yeah, I mean, we probably still are. So anyway, we're going over the mountains, Tennessee. We're going Knoxville to Savannah. And when we get over the mountains, we stop at this little truck stop. And so we go in and we have breakfast, and he had grits with his breakfast, and as he's leaving, the cook in his little vest up there takes your money as you're leaving, and he says, "My compliments to the chef. Those are the greatest grits I've ever had." He said, "Could I get the recipe?" And he reached under the counter, pulled out a pack of instant grits and flipped it at him. He said, "Just add water, you idiot." Now, here's this big, tough Polak. He wants to just rip this guy's head off. And I'm going, "Let's go, John. Come on." But he was some kind of partner now. You talk about having your back, which, you know, Kelly, when you played, you had your other players' backs, and when Mark played, he had, you know, but
I got you talk about driving stories. I got a driving story. It's not necessarily a bus story. Gracie stays, they're in town playing, and we go out. We have a few adult beverages, and it's getting late.
Oh, God. I know that story.
Probably pretty late because it's just about sun's coming up. And, silly to say it now, but so Gracie, I said, "Well, just stay at my place because I'll whip you down in the afternoon." So we're close to my house. And I don't know if I kind of nodded off or what happened, but we hit a flock of geese crossing the road by the pond in my subdivision. And I mean, there was just feathers flying everywhere. Some lady was running, and I mean, there was shit everywhere. No pun intended. And so I've got a dealer vehicle. So I pull in my garage and park my car. And I mean, I'm like, I look at the front of the car. I'm like, oh my God. I mean, they smashed my grill. It took,
there's carcass all in the grill.
Dead, but I mean, so anyways, lo and behold, the lady running's a nature lover, and the ringing on my doorbell and the pounding on the door. And I go to the door, and it's a Chesterfield police officer. He said, "Kelly," he said, "you're not driving a black Expedition, are you?" And I said, "No, sir. I had a black Yukon." And I said, "No, sir." He said, "Okay," because someone reported someone that drove down this street driving a black Expedition. Hit a flock of geese back there. We got 6 dead geese and a bunch of the animal people calling us. And he said, "I just want to make sure it wasn't you." I said, "Sir, not me tonight." And he goes, "Yeah, that's what I thought." So he got out. I mean, this guy might as well have said it. He knew. He was just like, "Open your garage door." He didn't want to write this up any more than I wanted to go through the story with him. And so on the way to the game, it was like, I'm sorry, some animal activist going to be all over your shit and your podcast and everything else. I mean, it was like they had flowers, like everything for these dead geese. They had these geese removed from over there. But Gracie and I went to take them back to the hotel. There was just feathers everywhere by the pond.
And those Canadian geese are protected. You know, they're protected.
Not in Canada, they're not. It's all nice around the golf course with them shitting everywhere here. You guys want that, that's fine. But not where I'm from. And I can tell you this, there was no one where I'm from that would have worried about it. But honest to God, I was like, "Gracie, I think he goes, "You think you hit some geese?" "You hit a flock of them, brother." You could have fed Thanksgiving with what you hit dead over there on that road.
I told you I can't sleep in cars. I was wide awake. Oh, shit.
That was a little early for the geese to be
Oh, they never felt a thing, trust me.
Well, finally, that was 30 years ago, I think, and they
so long ago.
They got the population back at Green Trails Pond now.
Well, the statute of limitations has passed. You'll be okay.
Oh, hey, fellas, we've had a lot of fun today with this. This has been a blast. Gracie, it's great to see you. And just thanks for sharing the stories with us. And Chaser, I always love seeing you and just having you two guys together. Many nights we were at Harry's and having good times there. And you just brought up some memories again for some of the good nights.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me. Sorry about a little hiccup earlier. I would have been on a little bit earlier. And Gracie, I'll be coming down to see you soon. I just bought a place in DC Ranch.
Well, you're out there with the rich folks. I'm going to come to your house.
Just don't drive late at night. That's all.
No kidding. No kidding. Hey, Westy, good luck with your show. It's great to see you, pal. And Chaser, love you, buddy. And Claibs, thanks for having me. Let's do it again soon.
We will.
All right. This was fun.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
For Joe West and Kelly Chase and Mark Grace, I'm Mike Claiborne. Thanks for tuning in to 5460, the Joe West Podcast.
My baby took me to the ballpark to see a baseball game. Lord, it had to be at least 99 in the shade. I was stealing a glance at some tight short pants just as I turned my head. My baby grabbed me by the arm and this is what she said. If you cheat on me, you'll be out at home. If I catch you playing the field, you're gonna be long gone. You better play it safe and don't do me wrong. 'Cause if you cheat on me, you'll be out at home.
You've been listening to 5460, the Joe West Podcast, here on the Podcast Heat Network. Make sure to subscribe and don't miss an episode each and every Monday. We'll talk to you next week.
She's checking all the signs while I'm enjoying two of the great American pastimes. It's fouling up my nerve watching all these curves, remembering what she said to me. And if I get caught looking, it's gonna be strike three. If you cheat on me, you'll be out at home. If I catch you playing the field, you're gonna be long gone. You better play it safe and don't do me wrong. 'Cause if you cheat on me, well, you'll be out at home. If you cheat on me, you'll be out at home. If I catch you playing the field, you're gonna be long gone. You better play it safe and don't do me wrong. 'Cause if you cheat on me, well, you'll be out at home. If you cheat on me, you'll be out at home.